when that happens. If you get your own, then let's talk with one another. Then let's reason with one another on the Scriptural Discussion with the Son of Man every Wednesday at 9 p.m., Friday at 9 p.m., and Sunday at 12 noon on WHDR TV Detroit Live, 88.1 FM WHDR. Why don't you call and discuss the Holy Bible? And if you have one, the Holy Quran, and come to an agreement about the Holy Scriptures and their true meaning. You can call them live on the air at area code 313-868-4336, 313-868-0342, or 313-868-0351. That's 313-868-4326, 313-868-0342, or 313-868-0351. And now, let's go live with a scriptural discussion with the Son of Man.
In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful, the Truthful, and the Most Just, I greet all of you once again who have the hunger and thirst for Allah's righteousness, the understanding of the instruction in righteousness, which is rightly called the Holy Scriptures. And I greet you all who are hungry and thirsty for that true understanding. I greet you with the greeting words of peace. May Allah's Salam Alaikum. We're going to, so we can get through this. Within the next 10 days, I want to be through with the Mueller report. So I'm going to, if it pleases Allah, read to you 20 pages, at least 20 pages a day. And that will get us through with it. And or we get through with it quicker. You know, I'm not a person who just say something just to be saying it. Most people stand up in front of you and talk to you, but they just want to be seen and heard. That ain't me. If Allah had not called me to this, I wouldn't have did it. You know, I was not seeking to be a leader over nobody. I was satisfied as a follower of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I entered into perfect peace just to have it stripped away. So I know what peace feels like. And I was satisfied. Then to find out that I got to try to be responsible for other people now. So I'm saying to the Caucasian people whose country this is, anyone who wants to dispute that, well, you take it somewhere else. Don't bring it to me. I know who drafted the Constitution. I know who owns this country. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad told you that America belongs to the white man. The United States belongs to white people. There is no, if you don't think it belongs to them, show me any place in America where if they don't like what's going on, they can't put a stop to it. When white people demonstrate, other white people who are in positions of power know they better listen, because they can do more than demonstrate. King George found that out. So I say this to you, not out of fear of you, but out of respect for you. If you think I'm out of place standing up here reading the Mueller report to try to enlighten you as to the crooked people you have in positions of power in your country that can do you harm, if you would rather I don't do that, all you got to do is unmute your phone and say, yeah, it's none of your business, really. And I promise you, I'll stop. I will close this book as far as trying to read anything about what's going on there. Because it's your country. It ain't mine. We used to have a saying when I was growing up. My brother taught it to me. My brother Sonny. Now, he always, Sonny was cool. And if you had met him, you'd know what I was talking about. I mean, you name it, he could do it. And I used to, feel so happy sometime when he'd take me somewhere with him. Because, I wasn't no tattletale for one thing. And I didn't try to force him to take me nowhere like my little brother tried to do me. And I got a many whippings about that boy. I ought to got over it now. James, your Uncle James, that boy used to get me in more trouble. But anyway, I was hang with my other brother, my brother Sonny, sometime, and some of his friends would be talking to him, and they'd ask him, "What's going on? What's going on, Sonny?" And he said, "Oh man, it's your world. I'm just living in it." And I said, "Yeah, that's all right. That's a true saying. It's your world. I'm just living in it." Anybody that know me knows that the stuff that your world have don't excite me. The little things that I used to think was about something, when I got a hold to them, I found out it wasn't nothing. I was trying to figure out what all the excitement was about. And so, but I didn't belong in it no way. So I know that now. That's not no reflection on you. I just wasn't born for this world. I was born to bring it into it. Which explains to me why I used to go places and trying to figure out why people just act like they didn't like me or something. I ain't did nothing to them. So I guess they saw me from whence I saw them not. Something about me made people uncomfortable. Now I know what it was. But so I say this now. I'm not like you. I don't walk around carrying vendettas against people. I ain't that way. That just ain't in me to do. I know too much. The reason you can walk around always mad at people, and even after I done taught you, it really ain't dawned on you the truth of what I said. And then when you try to do the truth of what I said, you forget that the white man is the devil and then lose yourself in that. See, I can be nice to white people. I can be nice to everybody. That don't make me forget who I'm dealing with. But I also know that the one I'm dealing with is the way he is or she because we made them that way. And so it's no sense in being angry with him. The only thing I'm angry with him about is now that he know we made him and we gave him 6,000 years and told him, you do your work in that time. And then when I get here, don't do no more. Rest. Now, if you don't want to rest, you will be put to rest. And it ain't because your skin is white either. Because everybody who follows Jacob's mind in my time, the book already told you, whosoever doeth any work in the Sabbath day shall surely, you know what surely mean? No doubt in it. Your mind gonna be taken from you. And if you don't think people's minds is being taken from them, I mean, I was sitting up there listening to the congressman, I could not believe it. Sitting up there talking about we got a right to invest. What do you mean a right? I ain't never heard no congressman sitting up talking about what Congress got a right to do. The Congress has a duty of oversight. A right is something that you can choose to exercise or choose not to. A duty is something that you have no choice in. Remember what I said, white people. If you want me to stop talking about your government and whatever, because you ain't over my head. Ain't nothing that you got going that I don't understand. And if I don't understand it at this particular, I'll say nothing you got going that I can't understand. And eventually, everything that you got going, it's going to be brought into my view, and I'm going to understand it and deal with you accordingly. And if that goes for white people, it goes for everybody that they the head of. And that's everybody on this planet. The only people that white folks ain't the head of on this planet, the only one is me. And you who accept me, I'm taking that head off of you. And you see, ain't nobody arguing about it either. And whatever plans you make against me, that's what's going to happen to you. You know who's going to do it to you? You. Teach you to plan against your Lord. Yeah, we'll fix you. Okay. The cup she have filled, pour it back on her. Huh? The thoughts that you filling up in your brain, it's like Pharaoh. This is why that story was in there. His plans that he had for the children of Jacob, the children of Israel, that's what happened here. So, look at you. You notice people can't even have string a coherent sentence together anymore. Am I lying or telling the truth? You think you're gonna think people that speak English is speaking a foreign language to you after a while. You watch what I tell you. Yeah, I'll fix you. Yeah, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Jesus told you, he said, don't fear them that can kill the body, and after that can't do nothing else. He said, I will forewarn you who you should fear. Fear him that after he have killed, have power to cast into hell. Yeah, I say fear him. Yep. Yeah, so you go on, all you supporters of wickedness, all you false witness bearers, speaking lies and bearing witness to it. What did the devil say? The devil, he's a liar from the beginning. Well, now we can put that on somebody now. Donald Trump was a liar from the very beginning. You knew he was lying. He even stood up and read the snake to you. Now, the very people that helped put him in there, the first ones that was hurt by them tariffs he put out there was the very people who put him in there. What did he say? He read the snake to him then. Put him in the White House with some honey and some milk. And when he got, when he thawed out, all them people stand up calling him so beautiful. They so in love with him. Huh? Now he biting them. That's the wonderful thing about growing up with nothing. People try to figure out why I don't seem to be concerned. You remember when I was on the air giving away money? As if I was rich. I ain't had no money. But the little I did have, I'm able to eat. Y'all saw to that. And so I know some of you may have been thinking crazy then. That he giving away our money. But they gone now. But as I told you, I ain't gave it all away. But I wanted to show you that you really can't be God-given. You sit up and it's just like the widow when she didn't have but enough oil and flour for one more meal for her and her son, and she said she's going to cook that and go on, and her and her son will die. Didn't say she's going to eat him next. But anyway, I guess self-preservation ain't the first law of nature with righteous people. But anyway, I told you it's a beast been ruling. Yeah. So you think on the level of beasts. They taught us this in school, that man is in the animal family. Man ain't in no animal family. That's the mind of the incomplete man who didn't understand. He thinks that all that is to us is flesh and blood. If it ain't about tangible flesh and blood, and that kind of, I'm saying flesh and blood. Not A-N-D, I'm talking about I-N, flesh and blood. Do you understand? And that's the proper way of saying it. Because the minute flesh is out of blood, it don't be flesh no more. It turns to dust. It's gone. So you see. So it's always got to stay dipped in blood in order to be flesh. Are we clear? All right. Now the in junior high was I think the first time I got into that subject matter was in junior high school, where they was teaching us that the plant life and the animal life, and that man is an animal. and he's the highest animal. And then you know, but the mere fact that, and he even reduced us to think like that. All of us began thinking that way. For you refer to animals as male and female. That's the hint that the Bible gave you, that God uh, taught them, created he them, male and female. Created he them. Do you understand? So that first man that God created, the first mind. When we say man, we are meaning a mind. Most people think that's talking about the making of the first human being. The first human being that was made was God. That's why didn't nobody ask the question, what is a man? What is that? God said to his fellows, let us make man in our image, after our likeness. They didn't say, what is man? Huh? No. Man already was here. This form was already here. When white people and yellow people and brown people got here, this form was already here. They came out of our semen. That's why they are called Semitic people. You will never hear them accuse me of being an anti-Semite, because I understand that just means that when someone is a Semite, he came out of the black man's, he's one of our children. Now, I cannot be anti my children. I may be anti the ways of my children, but I'm not anti my children. Do you understand? And if Minister Farrakhan and all of these people that thought they knew so much had got behind me, they wouldn't be having to worry about nobody putting them off of Facebook for racist speech or that kind of stuff. I mean, you can't call the truth that Allah revealed. Nobody is that stupid to call the truth that God revealed racism. Huh? How many of y'all think I'm a racist? That's for anybody. I talk about white people. Then how come you don't call me a racist? Because when I talk about anybody, I explain why I'm talking about them. Of course, I talk about black people, and generally when you're black and talking about black people, people call you Uncle Tom. You ain't heard nobody call me no Uncle Tom. The reason I fuss at all of you is because I'm the one that the scripture called the Heavenly Father. You know the one you've been talking about, our Father who art in heaven. Didn't the book tell you that the Son of Man came from heaven? And I'm coming from heaven right now. Every time I open this Bible and this Holy Quran, that's heaven. To me, it ain't to you. You can't ascend into this book. But I can. When I go into the book, I can read it and understand everything I'm reading, because Allah opened my understanding. He spread it before me and said, eat. And I'm the only one that he did that for. He said, now, go and speak with my words to them. So, and people always talking about when the Lord come, he gonna do this, he gonna do that. But why you saying he gonna do this and he gonna do that if you didn't expect him to be he? How are you looking for somebody to come, but they don't supposed to be a man? Then what you looking for him for? If he's not man. If he's anything other than man, he ain't gonna get nothing but jumped on, shot at, or alien something. And y'all will blow him up. We just saw what y'all do. Y'all will blow up an alien. He better not come here looking like something crazy. And if he come here with wings on his back, you know what you're going to do with him? You're going to put him in the zoo. No, the circus. And you go up to him and say, what's that on your back there? Said, these my wings. Said, where you from, mister? So you can't respect nothing that don't look like you. You learning to respect me. Because even when I'm being humorous with you, you notice you still learning something. I learned that from elders of mine. And they'd be laughing with me sometime and say, now look, young blood, I laugh and talk, but I don't play. That was his way of letting me know, yeah, I'm laughing with you and whatnot, but I meant what I just said. And he called me young blood. Yeah. That's how they talk to me. That's how they talk to all youngsters at that time. But now I even know the reason for that. So I want us to, when you learn who is who, that knowledge alone helps civilize you. When you really understand that it's true that God made all nations of men from one blood. And that's why we used to talk to each other, say, hey, blood, what's up? We didn't realize we the only one that talked like that. Black people was the only ones who talked like that. Because we the only ones that if we wasn't here, wouldn't nobody be here. All these other people know their birth record because we told them how old they are. But we don't know our birth record because we didn't come from another people. We came from Mother Earth. See that? Look at dust when you pour water on it. It looked just like that. So now, do you know how smart we had to be to make this farm? Have you thought about these digits here and everything that you've been able to do with these? Have you thought about the wisdom that it took to produce these? Now you see why people that hate me can't stop listening. I'm giving you thoughts that you never had before. And I'm not talking about thoughts of sci-fi. I'm talking about reality. And when you really learn that we are all actually one, it makes it impossible for you to actually hate your brother and your sister. because you wind up having to bear witness that you hating yourself. I remember the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, be careful about what you dislike in a person, because what you may dislike may be an attribute of God. So you know, it goes without saying, but I say it anyway. If you have something that you want to argue with me about before I get into my subject matter, I'll entertain the argument from you. Most people in this world, they think they had something because the people that they try to present it to always running from them. Most of your people that's out here in the public on the internet and stuff call themselves preaching and all of that and call themselves teaching somebody something. They number bigots. And most of them trying to pick your pocket, figure out something to sell you to keep from working. I don't hear you. You know, I mean, I don't give any credence, but very little, to someone who talks at you. But when someone wants to disagree, they got to write you or they got to do this. Well, why can't they just talk to you while you talking? And you say that would create too much confusion. It don't create no confusion in here. Somebody just unmuted their phone just now. What you want to say? You say, I'm not running from nobody. When it comes to truth and somebody with falsehood, man, I'm just like the police. Everybody running away from the shots, he running towards them. Because that's his duty. What is he saying when he run towards the bullets? When everybody else running away? My life and my death is all for my duty. How can you not respect that? There's a lesson in that for me. And I'm certainly not going to let him be more concerned about his duty than I am about mine. You think that officer don't feel adrenaline rushing? And that fear produces adrenaline. You can either let fear be your friend or your master. If fear is your friend, it will obey you. If it is your master, you will obey it and become a coward. There's no such thing as brave if you wasn't afraid. You're only brave when you are afraid and do it anyway. See, most people don't even know the language. You've been speaking this language all this time, and you don't even know the meaning of brave. But anyway, let us get back to this. I ain't finished with Trump yet. Y'all thought I was through with him? No. He read the snake, and that part, he got to that part where it says that the woman, when the snake had revived, said, "You so beautiful," she cried. And if I had not found you, by now you surely had died. And she gave the snake a hug and kiss and held him tight. And that snake gave that woman a vicious bite. And she said, "Oh, why'd you bite me?" He said, "So you know your bite is poisonous?" And she said, "Oh, you bit me. Heavens, why? You know your bite is poisonous, and now I'll surely die." And the snake looked at that woman with a broad grin and said, "Oh, shut up, silly woman. You do damn well I was a snake before you took me in." And he said, "Does that make sense?" That's what he said. He said, "Does that make sense?" Which of you sitting out there listening didn't know that Donald Trump was a liar before you elected him? How many of you didn't know that he was not qualified to be president before you elected him? Don't sit up there and say he tricked you. You are a liar. He did not trick you. I can tell you why you elected him. At least why you put up with them messing with your election. It's because you heard President Obama, a nigger, say that Donald Trump will never be president. You showed him, didn't you? I bet you showed him. Didn't you? And now look what he has done. Him and the other sycophants up there that signed the Northwest Pledge. Let me show you. I got a good memory, so I'm going to let you see that. Just a moment.
See us get rid of the Obamacare completely.
Now on the White House, all we have to do is replace Obama. Here's the challenge. He was a very, very good candidate in 2008. He's not a very good president. So a year ago, he just...
Now listen to what he said. He was a very good candidate in 2008, but he's not a good president. You know why he said that? Was because many of them had helped him get elected. And when John Boehner met with President Obama after he became president, they were sitting down talking, and John Boehner started enumerating the things that was going to need to be done. And Obama sit there and listen to him, enumerating what needs to be done, like he was still talking to the senator. And he looked at John Boehner and said, "But John, I won." In a nice way, telling him, "Have you forgotten that you're talking to the President of the United States? You dictating to me now?" That's what they thought they was going to do. That's what Norquist said when he said he was a good candidate, but he's not a very good president. Now, what did he mean by not a very good president? See, that flew right past you. Don't tell me it didn't fly past you. If I wasn't talking about it now, you still wouldn't be talking about it. But he's going to tell you what a good president is. He's going to tell you President Obama wasn't nobody's puppet. That's what he meant when he said he wasn't a good president. You know what they say about beauty and ugly? It's in whose eyes? It depends on who you're looking at. You know, I'll show you an example. A bank robber, the police is an ugly sight to him. On the other hand, the bank owner, the police look beautiful to him. Is that right? All right then. Well, now, listen. What'd you say?
Someone asked where Obama Clinton's liars.
Was what?
Was Obama Clinton liars?
Was Obama and Clinton liars? You can catch any person from at some point in their life and find they told a lie about something. But telling one lie don't make you a liar no more than doing one good deed makes you a righteous person. Don't try that with me. You go try that with somebody else with a small mind like yours. You see, the reason that what you're trying to do is get yourself off the hook for supporting a liar. Now, if you tell 10,000 lies in 2 years, you are a liar. That's why when he come on, I just turn. I'm not going to listen to no interview with him. I'm not going to listen. It's like green eggs and ham. You heard that poem before. I don't want it with this. I don't want it with that. I don't want Donald Trump with nothing. If we talking and you want to end that conversation, you just bring him in there and I'm gone. Because the minute you say we finna interview President Trump, I'm through with that. And I don't even know why you would even bother to interview him. He has proven to you that he will never tell you the truth. And it's an insult for you to compare him even to David Duke. David Duke is not a liar. He'll tell you what's happening with him. I can respect that. Even if I don't like it, I can respect it. Because at least he's being truthful about where he stands on things. If you ask him a question, don't ask no question that you don't want to know the answer to, because he's gonna sure tell you. Do you like black people? Hell no. That's what he gonna tell you. And now him, me and him could one day be brothers. You see? Because he's honest. And he could appreciate honesty. If he's an honest person himself, he can appreciate my honesty. You see? But Donald Trump is the kind of person that they coined this phrase for. Ask me no questions and I'll tell you no lies. I remember people saying that about certain people. I've heard crooks say that. You're a president sitting up calling a man that's cooperating with the FBI, calling him a rat. What's wrong? You can't think of nothing else to say smart?
They said, so they weren't liars. This is why you have credibility, lowest unemployment in the past 50 years for all Americans.
I see you still trying to feed us lies from Donald Trump. The economy was in fine shape when Donald Trump took it, and it was getting better and better and better. But and that wasn't Donald Trump's doing. That was the Obama administration's doing. You're not going to come in here and try to take credit for what somebody else did. Donald Trump didn't do that. Matter of fact, what he did do has caused the deficit to shoot up by $2 trillion? And this tariffs that he did that he didn't know how to do. He done got in there and did all kind of crazy stuff that's caused the economy to slow down now. Hey, you so look at it. You know why he doing that in that print? You see how long it took him to try to think up something? Because he couldn't answer nothing that I had said earlier. And now when you laying up and can't sleep at night, you remember how you acted tonight. That's your reward for trying to feed lies to people that you thought was gullible enough to go for it.
He's typing again.
I know.
Come on, son of man. You're the reason atheists exist.
No, I'm not the reason atheists exist. Atheists come in here and they stop existing. You see? But I am the reason that devils exist. I was the reason that the devil was made. Because I wasn't here, but thanks to him, I'm here. Why do you think they culture a disease that's bothering man? Why don't they kill the disease? No, because that disease gonna keep on being, but they culture it so that they can study it, and sooner or later they will produce the cure for it. I'm the cure for devils and everybody that's been infected with them. Can't you see how long it takes people to try to, he just throwing stuff out there now. He's spitballing now. You're the reason atheists exist. And you've seen atheists come in here before, haven't you? What did the atheist say to me? Did he leave saying he still don't believe in God? Well, all right then. What else you got? Come on in there and get this whooping. Anyway, see, he don't want me to play Grover Norquist, you see. But is that some white boy sitting up out there trying to save himself? Redneck sitting up out there trying to save himself? Some embarrassment? Are you white man? I'm just joking. Don't worry about it. Anyway, let's go back to this.
Now, in the White House, all we have to do is replace Obama. Here's the challenge. He was a very, very good candidate in 2008. He's not a very good president. So, a year ago, he decided since he wasn't a good president, but he was a good candidate, he'd go back to being a candidate. So, for the last year and for this next year, you've got candidate Obama. You don't have a guy being president. It's like William Henry Harrison. He wasn't quite president as long as the other guys. He's decided that...
You notice. Now, this was, I think it was in 2010 or something like that. I don't forget. It was 2012. Now, that was the year that President Obama was re-elected. Remember that? Okay. Well, certainly the incumbent president is the candidate in the time for voting. But you notice, Grover Norquist ain't said nothing about the economy and everything that was better now that was in the toilet when Obama took over, right? See, these people think they depend on you to be like a child. They want to. Why do you think you see commercials that don't make no sense, but you'll see a baby turn around and look at it and laugh and be enthused with it? You remind me of this movie. The people now remind me of that movie, They Live. And they were getting subliminal messages. Sleep, reproduce. No, sleep, eat, reproduce. They put you on the level of cattle. That's all cattle do. They eat, sleep, and reproduce. So they can just be used for food, for leather, for whatever. And they use you for whatever they want to use you for. The wicked, corrupt-minded people. We wrestle against, not against flesh and blood. It ain't never been about the white man's flesh. It's about that corrupt mind that we put in him that has been given dominion over the whole earth now. So we wrestle against powers and principalities and against the rulers of the darkness of this world. Spiritual wickedness in high places. That's why the book says I'm a stone of stumbling to both houses of Israel. The intellectual and the spiritual house. Both of them stumble over me. They wish they could find something that I could not reason with them about. But every time they think they done came up with something, they find out I know more about it than they do. Why do you think I'm called the best knower? To know means to understand. Whenever you come in here and call yourself fronting me, I'll listen to you, let you give me the understanding of what you're telling me, and then I'll ask you, now what else do it mean? And then your next words will be, what do you mean? I said, well, there's a lesson in that. Don't you know the spiritual side of that? I do. You just taught it to me. The worst thing in the world you can do is call yourself picking a fight with somebody who got more sense than you. I told you, it's stupid. So now Grover Norquist said Obama was not a good president. Well, let's see what he think a good president is. Listen.
Much work, and he's going to be a candidate. And so when you're trying to negotiate with him or work on legislation, forget it. You're talking to a candidate.
Now, what is a puppet? A puppet, when you look at a puppet acting, if you just concentrate on the puppet, it looks like the puppet is moving on its own. But the puppeteer is negotiating his moves. When you try to negotiate with him, he said he couldn't negotiate with President Obama. Huh? Now, the proper statement was he could not negotiate through Obama. Now, they got one that they can negotiate through now. His name is Trump. You notice everything about him is phony. Them hotels, a lot of them don't even own. He don't own them. They just bought the right to put his name on them. He's letting them do business in his name. He's a prostitute. Pay me enough, you can use my name, use my, huh? That's all he is a name. Like people go buy shoes, them tennis, Reebok, Nike. You know that, you know the names. You put that name on there, they immediately the value of it go up, don't it? There you go. president in name only. Grover Norquist finna tell you. Just listen.
There are a couple of quick thoughts on why we've had some angst on the Republican side at the presidential level. The first is good news. It's good news. We have all these candidates, and conservatives haven't picked one, or rather, at some point with serial monogamy, they picked one at a time.
Why did he say we've had some angst? Listen to that part there.
Much work, and he's going to be a candidate, and so when you're trying to negotiate with him or work on legislation, forget it, you're talking to a candidate. There are a couple of quick thoughts on why we've had some angst on the Republican side at the presidential level. The first is good news.
Now, he's thrown a kind of stone at Romney, too. See, Romney at least was his own man. People like Grover Norquist couldn't have manipulated him into selling the United States out. I mean, he may not have had a good plan, but to show you, look who he chose for a running mate, and that fella turned out to be nothing. Paul Ryan became Speaker of the House, and you saw how really inept he really was. Huh? All right. So, you know, not saying that if Romney had became president, that Paul Ryan would not have been carried along by Romney's intelligence, because Romney was not a fool by any means, not by a long shot. But Paul Ryan was not no kind of way presidential material. Do you understand? But anyway, when he said angst, most people don't know what the ank is. The ank is a cross with a circle over it, which meant life over death. And you've had some Republican angst, as he said, meaning some who wanted to do the right thing. You remember George H.W. Bush? When he signed that pledge too, but when he saw that the country needed a tax increase and needed to do something, he put taxes out there because he felt it was in the best interest of the country. I'm not saying George Bush was a righteous, upright man, but I'm saying that when it came to doing what was best for this country, he put the country first. Do you understand? As much as he could, being who he is. And so the ankh is a symbol for life over death. Now, the devil, his sign is death. Now you see why I said we had some ankhs on there. I mean, if now Norquist got what he wanted, and Trump told you he was going to drain the swamp. If you drain DC, that's the seat of the government, the District of Columbia. There ain't gonna be no government. Well, it'll be reduced down to the size that it can fit in the bathtub. So now listen to his idea of a good president, and then think about what you got in there right now. Listen to Grover Norquist tell you his idea of what kind of president you needed. Now, Obama wasn't this kind of president. Now, watch what Grover Norquist say you need.
It's good news. Candidates and conservatives haven't picked one, or rather, at some point with serial monogamy, they picked one at a time. And But the reason for that is, unlike 52, Eisenhower, Taft, everyone knew which way to go. Goldwater, Rockefeller, team sticked up. Reagan, Bush. These guys were auditioning to run the party in different directions. Okay? And so what happened?
Listen to, you notice he said run the party twice. That wasn't no accident. That's a hint to the wise, as they say. It's sufficient. How do you steer a nuclear submarine? That big old thing? You get in charge of its rudder. The Tea Party got in charge of the Republican Party. Couldn't have done that if hadn't took them roadblocks down for how much money you can put into the electoral process. So they been gradually like a virus invading the government. That's just the Tea Party. That's just, you got some people that's manipulated. But you think about how this Butina woman was over here seducing some of these people that can't think no further than what's between their legs, and used the NRA. The NRA had plenty of money for a while there, didn't it? Now they bankrupt, right? After this investigation showed that Russia had infiltrated the NRA and was working through them. Huh? I mean, they've been working on you a long time. I'm telling you, I'm talking to the American owners, to the owners of this country. You made a lot of enemies, man. Your country done made a lot of enemies. It's people right now. If it had not been for you, Hitler would have been in charge now. And all them people who thought like him would have been marching you into some gas chambers. And if you was anything other than blue-eyed blonde hair, you was a candidate for the gas chamber. There's a whole lot of white folks ain't got no blue eyes. Huh? Well, they know where that come from. Blue-eyed people cannot produce brown-eyed babies. I didn't hear you. Tell you what. You show me two blue-eyed, blonde-haired white people, and I defy you to show me where they could produce something other than what they are. So all y'all with brown eyes out there, so you just been out there passing. but I'm just trying to show you the truth. It's time that you wake up, man. And we didn't, just because you black and passing, we done had low down black people a long time before white people get here. There's some low down black people. Now act like you didn't know that. Just ask anyone that was in the nation, how did the moon get out there and what caused that? Low down black people that God got fed up with. And that was 66 trillion years ago. I didn't say million, and I didn't say billion. I said 66 trillion years ago, Low down black people caused God to put the moon out there. You know why they don't talk about taking trips to the moon and going up there and because you're going to find some dead bodies on there. Skeletons, well preserved, you know. I would not even say skeletons. But, and you got to find some buildings or something on there. I mean, it's a way to prove all that teaching to be a lie. Take us to the moon. That's all you got to do. If that's a lie, it's all a lie. That's a way to prove the Holy Quran is a lie, because the Quran says that the hour drew nigh and the moon was ripped asunder. So if the moon wasn't ripped away from the earth, then the Holy Quran is lying. And people say, well, why it ain't come back? Same reason they had hidden figures. If it hadn't been for them black women, that black woman that made them calculations, showed them calculations on how to get back after getting out there, they'd have never been able to go out there because there wouldn't have been no way to get back inside the Earth's atmosphere. They'd just been permanently circling. Like the moon. And I tell you something else. Well, I ain't gonna talk about that right now. But you know, I noticed you brought an ease note out of here. You ain't saying nothing else. I noticed you ain't said nothing else. Coming in here throwing stuff out there just to be throwing something out there. That's the difference in me and you. If I say something, I can tell you why I said it. If you think that it's just the opposite. That's the way liars are. Just like Donald Trump said, he ain't had nothing to do with Russia. Got all kind of business dealings he was trying to do with Russia. You see, he came in here and said, I'm the reason why people don't believe in God. It's just the opposite. I'm the reason that people are starting to believe in God. How you gonna blame me for what was taking place before I got here? Atheism didn't start after I got here. I found it here. And I'm erasing it too. So, but listen to, excuse me, I'm glad I talked so loud that people couldn't even tell that I hadn't unmuted the phone. You know, this thing, I keep forgetting I push that button. But Grover Norquist, he's about to tell you what a good president is. So let's see what his idea of a good president is.
I have a Reagan Republican Party. Everybody that ran for president wants to run as Ronald Reagan, which is why you have conservatives supporting each of these candidates. This is called winning. It's not a problem. It's confusing.
Jabril.
It's winning. Second, we are not auditioning for fearless leader. We don't need a president to tell us what direction to go. We know what direction.
We don't need a president to tell us what direction to go. What is the job description of the branch of government that the president occupies? Isn't it the executive branch? What do executives in companies do? Don't they dictate the direction of the company? Grover Norquist just said we don't need nobody to tell us what direction to go. In other words, see, they consolidated the executive and legislative branches and put it all in the House of Representatives and the Senate. That's why Mitch McConnell is, they playing it up like he's kowtowing to Trump. No, they running things through Trump. Do you understand? That's why they're taking over your government. They're erasing your government right in front of you. Like, the old saying, they say it's a Chinese proverb, but I don't know if it's true. But it is a true statement that if you put a frog in some hot water, he will leap out. But if you put him in cool water and gradually turn up the heat, he'll cook to death before he realized that he should have leaped out. Huh? Look at you. Now, the art of the deal. When you know something, if you're a card shark, now let me show you. Now I can shoot pool. Now I ain't no shark, but I know I could shoot I've shot a couple and didn't do too bad. But in a card shark, a pool shark is someone who can play you and you will almost win. And you say, I'm going to get you this next time. Because he knows how to miss purposely and leave you what they call stuck up. He's maneuvering the pool ball, the pool cue ball, by the English he put on it, that he'll make it wind up where you will have a hard shot. And 9 times out of 10, you'll miss. And when you miss, knowing that you don't know how to do what he knows how to do with that cue ball, you're leaving him an out, but it appears that you and him are on the same level. And he just got lucky when he missed and left you stuck up, and you missed and left him able to shoot out. And then he will shoot a couple of balls, 2 or 3 balls, and then he'll miss again and leave you stuck up again. And the next thing you know, you done lost all your money. Okay, a card shark is someone who can deal you a hand, depending on who you are and what your level is. If he's really a shark, he knows what level you play on. And he'll give you a hand that looks good to you so that you will think you're getting an honest deal. And matter of fact, you'll think that you can, especially in games where you have to keep asking for more cards. And, like blackjack or what is that, poker, and those kind of things. And a dealer that really knows his stuff, a shark, he can deal from the bottom of the deck and you never know it. And so he know what he dealt you. And he knows that you're going to need to be asking for some cards. He just give you the cards, everything but what you're looking for. And there again, you think it's just bad luck. And as I said, the art of the deal. You see, he gave a lot of wealthy people. You heard President Obama say, "Why are you giving tax breaks to those who really don't need them?" He said, "Me and people like me, we have money. We don't need no tax breaks." Warren Buffett, but they still giving tax breaks to the wealthy, because most people that have wealth that got it easy. Look at Manafort. I done lived in the fast lane before. I know. I done been around people who live fast. You be thinking that them people got all this money. They spending that money fast as they get it. Manafort went through $60 million. It's called a fast life. Who goes and pays $15,000 for a jacket? Somebody that's got more money than they know what to do with and didn't have to really work for it, so it didn't mean nothing to them. It's $15,000. If people paying you millions of dollars to do nothing, what is $15,000 to you? Everything is relative. Even your value system. That's why I'm glad I grew up like I did. Poor. So I could truly learn the value of things, or the valuelessness of things. See, I didn't, when a lot of people that get a little something, next thing you know, you can tell they reliving their childhood. They go out and buy a lot of stuff that they don't need, just stuff they always wanted and never was able to get. And then, so they go back and get all those things. And then after they got all of them things and can't think of nothing else to get, then they, instead of dressing nice and instead of fixing themselves up, then they start walking around looking like a hobo. I mean, got plenty of wealth. And now they don't, never really developed a moral compass within themselves. I use that word since y'all know what that means. The old people used to tell us, boy, get in there and put some clothes on and fix yourself up. Even if you ain't got nothing, at least you can look like you got something. Somebody might give you something. But it is really, it irks me to see people that have plenty come out in front of our young people with some old raggedy jeans on and a t-shirt, and got the young people looking up to them. A nasty generation. That irks me. One thing I respect about Charles Barkley, when they tried to get him to say he's a role model, he said, "Ain't no role model for nobody." That's what he told. Don't be telling them children I'm a role model for them. Want to dangle what? So all our children don't want to be nothing but sports figures. There are no sports figures putting no rover on Mars. Then later on, show you a black woman that did ring. You know where they got the term computer from? That's what they used to call them women, computers. Now, if that was in the black woman, how in the world could they expect to compete with the black man if if they ever let him wake up. I defy you to produce a white man that can do everything I can do right now, or any man. And I didn't need you to teach me. So, and I'm not saying that as a boast. I'm saying that to put a stop to you walking around here acting like the only person that has some brains is white people. When if we hadn't brought you out of the cave, you'd still be there. Even the director of the Klan had sense enough to say thank you for that. Better not tell me that didn't happen. You ain't never heard them tell you how they got out of the cave. It's right there in the book. We sent Moses in there to get them, as Moses lifted up the serpent in the wilderness. The man like Moses, even the Son of Man, must be lifted up from the affliction of slavery. Well, now, listen to that Norquist tell you what you need.
We're on the Paul Ryan budget, which cuts spending $6 trillion. For fearless leader. We don't need a president to tell us what direction to go. We know what direction we want to go. We're on the Paul Ryan budget, which cuts spending $6 trillion.
If that's true, why is the deficit $2 trillion? Then went up two more trillion. Paul Ryan was in there. Was he even talking about the budget? Did he ever say anything about the budget? And the president was Republican, the Senate was majority Republican, and the House of Representatives was Republican. So what you doing, since you knew so much about deficits and spending and all of this kind of thing, you done forgot who was in charge before President Obama took over. Republicans was in charge. Now, just think if Democrats and Republicans had just remembered the rules. We're Democrats and Republicans until the election is over. Then the rule is we are Americans, and that's why they always start off with my fellow Americans. You understand? But now it's all about party. And as George Washington told them, he said, I have already intimated to you the danger of parties in the state, with particular reference to the founding of them on geographical discriminations. Let me now take a more comprehensive view and warn you in the most solemn manner against the baneful effects. Baneful means harmful. Effects of the spirit, the mind, and doctrine of party generally. This spirit, unfortunately, is inseparable from our nature, having its root in the strongest passions of the human mind. It exists under different shapes in all governments, more or less stifled, controlled, or repressed. But in those of this form, the popular form, in other words, the form that we have here, this democratic republic, it is seen in its greatest rankness degenerativeness, its greatest evil, its greatest open immorality. When something is rank, it's just horrible, terrible. Huh? It is seen in its greatest rankness and is truly any democratic republic's worst enemy. The alternate domination of one faction over another sharpened, meaning increased even, by the spirit of revenge. We're going to get them so-and-sos next. We're going to get them Republicans next time. We're going to get them Democrats next time. They done forgot that they're brothers. Huh? Just remind me of football, being practice. Fellas out there practicing, supposed to be, remember. I mean, you're on the same team. They're there trying to hurt you. Just that stupid. But anyway, he says, the alternate domination of one faction over another, sharpened by the spirit of revenge, natural to party dissension, which in different ages and countries has perpetrated the most horrid enormities, evils. That's what enormities is. Just beyond, matter of fact, let's bring it up here. I'm going to read it. Enormities, the quality of passing all moral bounds, excessive wickedness or outrageousness, a monstrous offense or evil, an outrage. You put a man in the most, if you don't believe the president's, the presidency and the Oval Office are sacred, why you spend so much time guarding him and protecting him and giving him a bunker and all of this kind of thing? I assume you consider that a sacred thing. And you just put a man in your most sacred office who showed you that he has no morals. And you don't have sense enough to care. And you think you're going to keep on governing. You think you're going to, you're not. And I'll say to Mr. Putin, let me tell you what Allah said about you trying to put back together the USSR. Let me tell you this. It is forbidden to a town which we destroy. It shall not return. You haven't even had sense enough to realize that with the mindset that you have, it fell. If you couldn't hold it together, what make you think you smart enough to put it back together? Look at you. Even though you saw the fall of the USSR, you following in their footsteps. You somehow think Mr. Putin is so smart. If he was so smart, he was in the KGB, and they were all part of the same mindset. What happened that it failed? That's a sign to you that your mindset is insufficient. Now, what did you say the definition of a fool is? Somebody who keeps the same mindset, doing the same thing, thinking they're going to get a different result. Anyway, you go ahead. I mean, it's your business what you do. So I'll leave that alone. So it says the alternate domination of one faction or party over another's, sharpened by the spirit of revenge, natural to party dissension, which in different ages and countries has perpetrated the most horrid enormities, the horrid evils, is itself a frightful tyranny or despotism. But this leads at length, notice, you living under despotism right now, under tyranny right now. The people want the Congress to exercise their duty and oversee what the president is doing. The people who supposedly elected the Senate and everything, and the Senate ain't doing nothing. This man that's president right now, even he himself, when a special counsel was appointed, he himself said, my presidency is through. So they done shocked him even that he's still in there. I guess he was right. The American justice system is a joke. The Congress is that we thought had so much power. These are lawmakers. The lawmakers just seen the attorney general sit there in front of them, unafraid of them, as though they have no authority over him. When he was asked, why didn't you ask the investigators, Mr. Mueller and them, to help you compose the letter? He said, because it was my letter. You talk about a trite answer. Okay. And it says, the disorders and miseries which result from tyranny gradually incline the minds of men to seek security and repose in the absolute power of an individual. That's how Hitler came to power. Remember, he kept saying, Hail Hitler, right? And it says, and sooner or later, the chief of some prevailing faction, more able or more fortunate than his competitors, turns this despotism to the purposes of his own elevation on the ruins of public liberty. Man up there telling you that the press is the enemy of the people. Yeah, the enemy of the people who trying to take over your government. But anyway, then it says, without looking forward to an extremity of this kind, which nevertheless ought not to be entirely out of sight, the common and continual mischiefs of the spirit of party are sufficient to make it the interest and duty of a wise people to discourage and restrain it. But instead, you all encourage partisanship and all that kind of foolishness. And so it's tearing your country up. So now let's get into the Mueller report. After this one last thing.
This is very easy. It block grants all the 77 plus welfare systems. It takes all of these unfunded liabilities and makes them fully funded and individually controlled by individuals. It takes spending from 25% of GDP down to 20% in 10 years and then down to 15% in out years. The Republicans in the House have passed 24 plus bills that create jobs and opportunity and strip out regulations. We just need a president to sign this stuff. We don't need someone to think it up or design it. We have a House and a Senate. The leadership now for the modern conservative movement for the next 20 years will be coming out of the House and the Senate. So focus on
You heard him, right? So what is the president supposed to be? A rubber stamp. Don't need nobody with brains to stamp nothing, do you? Okay. Now listen to what he says you want. Now he said Obama ain't no good president. Now listen.
the most conservative Republican who can win in each House seat. 4+ bills that create jobs and opportunity and strip out regulations. We just need a president to sign this stuff. We don't need someone to think it up or design it. We have a House and a Senate. The leadership now for the modern conservative movement for the next 20 years will be coming out of the House and the Senate. So focus on electing the most conservative Republican who can win in each House seat and the most conservative Republican who can win in each Senate seat, and then pick a Republican with enough working digits to handle a pen to become president of the United States.
And that's exactly what they did. And so when he went to deal with heads of state of other nations that truly were heads of state, he was like a frog in front of snakes, and each one of them trying to figure out who gonna eat this frog. Is that right? You saw how he conducted himself over there in Helsinki. He didn't conduct himself like the head of the last superpower. He conducted himself like the head of the boys' glee club, excited to meet the head of state of another country. All right, listen.
Change, and the Democrats actually have been running everything out of the House and Senate for a long, long time. This is a change for Republicans to realize that the body of where we're going to be is House and Senate work with the president's signing bills.
So he just wanted somebody that'll sign whatever they put in front of him, right? That's what he got. And so they've eliminated your executive branch. And in order to eliminate the executive branch, they had to eliminate the legislative branch. You haven't thought about that, have you? Because the legislative branch is supposed to make laws to prevent anybody from being able to consolidate all the branches in one. The Constitution already has done that. But what happens when you don't uphold the Constitution? Then it's the same as not having one. Okay. So now let's read from Mr. Mueller and the Justice Department's report. Now, we left off on page 231, but I'm going to go to the bottom of 230 because, as it says, in a press conference the next day, July 27, 2016, Trump characterized, quote, this whole thing with Russia, end quote, as, quote, a total deflection, quote unquote, a total deflection, and stated that it was, quote unquote, far-fetched and, quote unquote, ridiculous. Trump said that the assertion that Russia had hacked the emails was unproven, but stated that it would give him, quote, when a reporter asked that it wouldn't give you, would it give you any pause to be receiving help from Russia and against Ms. Clinton, to know that they had hacked into the Democratic, the DNC, whatnot? He said it would give him no pause. He said, but stated that it would give him, quote unquote, no pause if Russia had Clinton's emails. It wouldn't give him no pause to, to think, hey, they ain't got no business doing this. It wouldn't bother him. And he gonna take the oath that say he gonna uphold the Constitution. Okay. Trump added. Listen to what he said. After he said it wouldn't give him no pause, Trump added, quote, Russia, if you're listening, I hope you're able to find the 30,000 emails that are missing. I think you will probably be rewarded greatly, mightily by our press, end quote. Trump also said that, quote, there's nothing that I can think of that I'd rather do than have Russia friendly as opposed to the way they are right now, end quote. And in response to a question about whether he would recognize Crimea as Russian territory and consider lifting sanctions, Trump replied, quote, we'll be looking at that. Yeah, we'll be looking, end quote. Notice he said that there's nothing, listen good, there's nothing that I can think of that I'd rather do than have Russia friendly. Well, how do you become friendly with a dictator? By doing what he asked you to do. Then Trump wanted to dissolve NATO, didn't he? That's what Russia wanted. That's what Putin wanted. So that he could bowl over Europe without any interference, without them being together to protect themselves. What do them big cats do when they find a herd, or wolves do when they find a herd of the water buffalo or whatever? They try to cut them. They try to break them up. They know as long as they standing there in a herd, they can defend themselves. They want to break. He wants to break up NATO so he can take them down one by one. If anybody knows the futility of individualism, it's the so-called American Negro. That's why the Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us to stick together. He said, ain't no Muslim going to stand by and watch you beat his brother down and think he going to stand there and just watch. No. Because in the first place, we ain't going to go out here breaking your law. But if we are attacked, we going to defend ourselves. We going to defend ourselves. If you attack one of us, all of us is involved. We ain't no gang. I done been here for 30-something years. Matter of fact, been here almost 40 years. Ain't never had no altercation with nobody. Because I don't go around starting trouble with people. But if attacked, I have forewarned you that I'm not to turn the other cheek bunch. I turn the cheek all right. You know, I know what that means. If your enemy won't receive good from you and want to run over you, well, turn to him the other cheek. The opposite cheek of good is evil. You ain't got to tell me to leave you alone and don't be aggressing on you, because I ain't gonna do it. I ain't gonna bother you. And I don't expect you to bother me. So Trump wants to be friends with. Have you heard Russia say anything about wanting to be friends with you? Ain't nothing he would like better. That's what he said. He said, I can't think of, he said, there's nothing that I can think of that I'd rather do than have Russia friendly as opposed to the way they are right now. Well, you sure ain't gonna have them friendly in a way that is respectful if you over there bending and bowing to him. But anyway, let's read on. During the press conference, Trump repeated, quote, I have nothing to do with Russia. He repeated that, unquote. He repeated that 5 times. Why wasn't once enough? That old saying go up me thinks you does protest too much. Huh? But anyway, he stated, quote, the closest he came to Russia, end quote, was that Russians may have purchased a home or condos from him. He said that after he held the Miss Universe pageant in Moscow in 2013, he had been interested in working with Russian companies that, quote, wanted to put a lot of money into developments in Russia, end quote. But, quote unquote, it never worked out. He explained, quote, frankly, I didn't want to do it for a couple of different reasons. But we had a major developer that wanted to develop property in Moscow and other places, but we decided not to do it, end quote. The Trump organization, however, had been pursuing a building project in Moscow. The Trump Tower Moscow project from approximately September 2015 through June 2016, and the candidate was regularly updated on developments, including possible trips by Michael Cohen to Moscow to promote the deal and by Trump himself to finalize it. Cohen recalled speaking with Trump after the press conference about Trump's denial of any business dealings in Russia, which Cohen regarded as untrue. Cohen know that wasn't true, that when he said that he didn't have no business dealings, they were dealing all the time. Trump told Cohen that Trump Tower Moscow was not a deal yet and said, quote, why mention it if it's not a deal, end quote. You notice he said he had no dealings in Russia. He playing with words on you. Okay. According to Cohen, at around this time, in response to Trump's disavowal of connections to Russia, campaign, page 232, campaign advisors had developed a quote unquote party line that Trump had no business with Russia and no connections to Russia. In addition to denying any connections with Russia, the Trump campaign reacted to reports of Russian election interference in aid of the campaign by seeking to distance itself from Russian contacts. Now, if you're going to play with words, then, you know, it's hard to do that with somebody else who knows the English language. I mean, when you talking to someone and you can't hardly make out what they're saying, what do you call it? You call it a bad connection, right? But you acknowledge that it is a connection, right? So when you're communicating with people, there's a connection there. Is that right? Okay. You don't play with words on me. I know what the word connection means. It has many meanings. And if any of them meanings is true, then you had connections with Russia. Then it says, in addition to denying any connections with Russia, the Trump campaign reacted to reports of Russian election interference in aid of the campaign by seeking to distance itself from Russian contacts. For example, in August, from Russian connections. Russian contacts, Russian connections. Then it says, for example, in August 2016, Foreign Policy Advisor J.D. Gordon declined an invitation to Russian Ambassador Sergei Kislyak's residence because the timing was, quote unquote, not optimal. In view of media reports about Russian interference. Pardon me. On August 19th, on August 19th, 2016, Manafort was asked to resign amid media coverage scrutinizing his ties to a pro-Russian political party in Ukraine and links to Russian business. And when the media published stories about Page's connections to Russia in September 2016, Trump campaign officials terminated Page's association with the campaign and told the press that he had played, quote unquote, no role in the campaign. On October 7th, 2016, WikiLeaks released the first set of emails stolen by a Russian intelligence agency from Clinton campaign chairman John Podesta. The same day, the federal government announced that, quote, the Russian government directed the recent compromises of emails from U.S. persons and institutions, including from U.S. political organizations, end quote. The government statement directly linked Russian hacking to the release on WikiLeaks with the goal of interfering with the presidential election and concluded, quote, that only Russia's senior-most officials could have authorized these activities, end quote, based on their, quote unquote, scope and sensitivity. On October 11th, 2016, Podesta stated publicly that the FBI was investigating Russia's hacking and said that candidate Trump might have known in advance that the hacked emails were going to be released. Vice presidential candidate Mike Pence was asked whether Trump, page 233, whether Trump campaign was in quote unquote in cahoots with WikiLeaks in releasing damaging Clinton related information, and responded, quote, "Nothing could be further from the truth." That's not an answer. You notice he didn't say no. He said nothing could be further from the truth. What is that? That's a dance around answering. Do you understand? It says on November 8th, 2016. We're on page 233 now. Oh, I forgot to tell you the subtitle here. Subsection 4, subtitle 4 is, after the election, Trump continues to deny any contacts or connections with Russia or that Russia aided his election. On November 8th, 2016, Trump was elected president. 2 days later, Russian officials told the press that the Russian government had maintained contacts with Trump's, quote, immediate entourage, end quote, during the campaign. In response, Hope Hicks, who had been the Trump campaign spokesperson, said, quote, "We are not aware of any campaign representatives that were in touch with any foreign entities before yesterday when Mr. Trump spoke with many world leaders," end quote. Hicks gave an additional statement denying any contacts between the campaign and Russia. Quote, "It never happened. There was no communication between the campaign and any foreign entity during the campaign," end quote. On December 10th, 2016, the press reported that U.S. intelligence agencies had, quote, concluded that Russia interfered in last month's presidential election to boost Donald Trump's bid for the White House, end quote. Reacting to the story the next day, President-elect Trump stated, quote, "I think it's ridiculous. I think it's just another excuse," end quote. So he thinks the intelligence community telling him that Russia interfered was ridiculous. Well, that's rich. He continued that no one really knew who was responsible for the hacking, suggesting that the intelligence community had, quote, "no idea if it's Russia or China or somebody. It could be somebody sitting in a bed someplace," end quote. The president-elect, page 234, the president-elect also said that Democrats were, quote unquote, putting out the story of Russian influence, quote, because they suffered one of the greatest defeats in the history of politics, end quote. On December 18th, 2016, Podesta told the press that the election was, quote, distorted by the Russian intervention, unquote, end quote, and questioned whether Trump campaign officials had been, quote, in touch with the Russians, end quote. The same day, incoming Chief of Staff Rice Priebus appeared on Fox News Sunday and declined to say whether the president-elect accepted the intelligence community's determination that Russia intervened in the election. When asked about any contact or coordination between the campaign and Russia, Priebus said, quote, even this question is insane. Of course, we didn't interface with the Russians. He wasn't asked if he interfaced with them. Huh? Yeah. In other words, it says, end quote. Priebus added that, quote, this whole thing is a spin job. Yeah, everything they were saying is a spin job. End quote. You know, they go away and laugh and think they done talk past you. And they might did talk past them people that was asking them the question. Then a spin job is a con job. Then it says, quote, the real question is why the Democrats are doing everything they can to delegitimize the outcome of the election. End quote. Even that statement shows you that it was crooked. Why? Because there would be nothing that you could do to delegitimize it if it had been a straight election. Do you understand how he told on himself with that statement? He used the word delegitimize to say that it was not a legitimate election. The intelligence community had already told you that it was not legitimate because Russia interfered. What do they usually do when something didn't seem right about something? They have it over again, don't they? Okay. Why wasn't this one had over? It says, let me make sure that I'm getting here. We're on page 234. It says, on December 29th, 2016, the Obama administration announced that in response to Russian cyber operations aimed at the U.S. election, it was imposing sanctions and other measures on several Russian individuals and entities. When first asked about the sanctions, President-elect Trump said, quote, I think we ought to get on with our lives, end quote. He then put out a statement that said, quote, it's time for our country to move on to bigger and better things, end quote. What's bigger and better things than the making sure that the electoral process of the United States, which this government is purely an elective government, you don't think that's a big thing to make sure that it stays honest? No, Trump didn't. Then it says, he then put out a statement that said, quote, it's time for our country to move on to bigger and better things, end quote. But indicated that he would meet with intelligence community leaders the following week for a briefing on Russian interference. The briefing occurred on January 6, 2017. Following the briefing, the intelligence community released the public version of its assessment, which concluded with high confidence that Russia had intervened in the election through a variety of means with the goal of harming Clinton's electability. Page 235. Harming Clinton's electability. The assessment further concluded with high confidence that Putin and the Russian government had developed a clear preference for Trump. Several days later, now, you know, Trump said that was all just a bunch of stuff. When he went to Helsinki and Putin was asked, did he support Trump? He said yes, bearing witness that the intelligence community had told the American people the truth. Huh? Okay. Several days later, BuzzFeed published unverified allegations compiled by former British intelligence officer Christopher Steele during the campaign about candidate Trump's Russia connections under the headline, quote, "These reports allege Trump has deep ties to Russia," end quote. In a press conference the next day, the president-elect called the release, quote, "an absolute disgrace," end quote, and said, quote, "I have no dealings with Russia. I have no deals that could happen in Russia because we've stayed away. So I have no deals. I have no loans and I have no dealings. We could make deals in Russia very easily if we wanted to. I just don't want to because I think that would be a conflict," end quote. Several advisors recalled that the president-elect viewed stories about his Russian connections the Russia investigations and the intelligence community assessment of Russian interference as a threat to the legitimacy of his electoral victory. Quote, pardon me, Hicks, for example, said that the president-elect viewed the intelligence community assessment as his, quote unquote, Achilles heel. Because even if Russia had no impact on the election, people would think Russia helped him win, taking away from what he had accomplished. He hadn't accomplished nothing. But him and the crooks that put him in there, and the foolish people who let the electoral process become computerized. That's who actually, that's what this is really about. This all stuff here is just a smokescreen. The real problem with your electoral process is you took the voting ballot away from the people and put it in a computer. If you really want your democratic republic to stand, you better take your ballots back. Several advisors recalled that the president-elect viewed stories about his Russian connections, and well, I read that already. Let me see. Hicks, for example, said that the president-elect viewed the intelligence community assessment as his Achilles heel because even if Russia had, well, we read that. Let's get on back to the next one. It says Sean Spicer, the first White House communications director, recalled that the president thought the Russia story was developed to undermine the legitimacy of his election. Gates said the president viewed the Russia investigation as an attack on the legitimacy of his win. And Priebus recalled that when the intelligence assessment came out, the president-elect was concerned people would question the legitimacy of his win. Well, I guess so, since it was illegitimate. Page 236, subtitle B. The president's conduct concerning the investigation of Michael Flynn. The overview. Here's the overview of it. During the presidential transition, incoming National Secretary, incoming National Security Advisor, Michael Flynn, had 2 phone calls with the Russian ambassador to the United States about the Russian response to U.S. sanctions imposed because of Russia's election interference. After the press reported on Flynn's contacts with the Russian ambassador, Flynn lied to incoming administration officials by saying he had not discussed sanctions on the calls. The officials publicly repeated those lies in press interviews. The FBI, which previously was investigating Flynn for other matters, interviewed him about the calls in the first week after the inauguration, and Flynn told similar lies to the FBI. On January 26, 2017, Department of Justice officials notified the White House that Flynn and the Russian ambassador had discussed sanctions and that Flynn had been interviewed by the FBI. The next night, the president had a private dinner with FBI Director James Comey, in which he asked for Comey's loyalty. On February 13, 2017, the president asked Flynn to resign. The following day, the president had a one-on-one conversation with Comey in which he said, quote, "I hope you can see your way clear to letting this go, to letting Flynn go," end quote. Now here's the evidence. Subtitle 1, incoming National Security Advisor Flynn discusses sanctions on Russia with Russian Ambassador Sergei Kislyak. Shortly after the election, President-elect Trump announced he would appoint Michael Flynn as his national security advisor. For the next 2 months, Flynn played an active role we on page 236 now. Flynn played an active role on the Presidential Transition Team, PTT, coordinating policy positions and communicating with foreign government officials, including Russian ambassador to the United States, Sergei Kislyak. On December 29th, 2016, as noted in Volume 2, Section 2A, Roman numeral 2A, 4, Supra, the Obama administration announced that it was imposing sanctions and other measures on several Russian individuals and entities. That day, multiple members of the PTT, which is that post-transition team, multiple members of the PTT exchanged emails about the sanctions and the impact they would have on the incoming administration. And Flynn informed members of the PTT that he would be speaking to the Russian ambassador later in the day. Page 237. Flynn, who was in the Dominican Republic at the time, and K.T. McFarland, who was slated to become the Deputy National Security Advisor and was at the Mar-a-Lago Resort in Florida with the president-elect and other senior staff, talked by phone about what, if anything, Flynn should communicate to Kislyak about the sanctions. McFarland had spoken with incoming administration officials about the sanctions and Russia's possible responses, and thought she had mentioned in those conversations that Flynn was scheduled to speak with Kislyak. Pardon me. Based on those conversations, McFarland informed Flynn that incoming administration officials at Mar-a-Lago did not want Russia to escalate the situation. At 4:43 p.m. that afternoon, McFarlane sent an email to several officials about the sanctions and informed the group that, quote, General Flynn is talking to Russian ambassador this evening, unquote, or end quote. Approximately 1 hour later, McFarlane met with the president-elect and senior officials and briefed them on the sanctions and Russia's possible responses. I did tell you this is 237, right? Okay. Incoming Chief of Staff Rice Priebus recalled that McFarlane may have mentioned at the meeting that the sanctions situation could be quote unquote cooled down and not escalated. McFarlane recalled that at the end of the meeting, someone may have mentioned to the president-elect that Flynn was speaking to the Russian ambassador that evening. McFarlane did not recall any response by the president-elect. Priebus recalled that the president-elect viewed the sanctions as an attempt by the Obama administration to embarrass him by delegitimizing his election. Immediately after discussing the sanctions with McFarlane on December 29th, 2016, Flynn called Kislyak and requested that Russia respond to the sanctions only in a reciprocal manner without escalating the situation. After the call, Flynn briefed McFarlane on its substance. Flynn told McFarlane that the Russian response to the sanctions was not going to be escalatory because Russia wanted a good relationship with the Trump administration. On December 30th, 2016, Russian President Vladimir Putin announced that Russia would not take retaliatory measures. In response to the sanctions, would not take retaliatory measures in response to the sanctions at that time and would instead, quote, plan further steps to restore Russian-U.S. relations based on the policies of the Trump administration, end quote. Following that announcement, the president-elect tweeted, quote, great move on delay by by V. Putin. I always knew he was very smart. Exclamation point. End quote. On December 31st, 2016, Kislyak called Flynn and told him that Flynn's request had been received at the highest levels and Russia had chosen not to retaliate in response to the request. Later that day, Flynn told McFarlane about this follow-up conversation with Kislyak and Russia's decision not to escalate the sanctions situation based on Flynn's request. McFarlane recalled that Flynn thought did I say 238? Okay, we're on 238. McFarlane recalled that Flynn thought his phone call had made a difference. Flynn spoke with other incoming administration officials that day, but does not recall whether they discussed the sanctions. Flynn recalled discussing the sanctions issue with incoming administration officials, Stephen Bannon, the next day. Flynn said that Bannon appeared to know about Flynn's conversations with Kislyak, and he and Bannon agreed that they had, quote, stopped the train on Russia's response, end quote, to the sanctions. On January 3rd, 2017, Flynn saw the president-elect in person and thought they discussed the Russian reaction to the sanctions, but Flynn did not have a specific recollection of telling the president-elect about the substance of his calls with Kislyak. Boy, these people can lie. Members of the intelligence community were surprised by Russia's decision not to retaliate in response to the sanctions. The reason I said, boy, these people can lie, is because you're going to tell me you go and have a conversation with the most powerful man in America and you don't remember what y'all talked about? Oh, man. When analyzing Russia's response, they became aware of Flynn's discussion of sanctions with Kislyak. Previously, the FBI had opened an investigation of Flynn based on his relationship with the Russian government. Remember, Flynn was seen sitting at the table with Putin on several occasions. And it says, Flynn's contacts with Kislyak became a key component of that investigation. Okay, page 239, subtitle 2. President-elect Trump is briefed on the intelligence community's assessment of Russian interference in the election, and Congress opens election interference investigations. On January 6, 2017, as noted in Volume 2, Section 2, A4, Supra, intelligence officials briefed President-elect Trump and the incoming administration on the intelligence community's assessment that Russia had interfered in the 2016 presidential election. When the briefing concluded, Comey spoke with the president-elect privately to brief him on unverified, personally sensitive allegations compiled by Steele. According to a memorandum Comey drafted immediately after their private discussion, the president-elect began the meeting by telling Comey he had conducted himself honorably over the prior year and had a great reputation. The president-elect stated that he thought highly of Comey, looked forward to working with him, and hoped that he planned to stay on as FBI director. Comey responded that he intended to continue serving in that role. Comey then briefed the president-elect on the sensitive material in the Steele reporting. Comey recalled that the president-elect seemed defensive, so Comey decided just a moment, making sure that I'm not, Comey decided to assure him that the FBI was not investigating him personally. Comey, now I see where that came from. Comey was just sharing with him what Steele had did. And the president got so defensive, Comey said, this ain't us investigating you. This is what I'm showing you what Steele said. And Comey recalled he did not want the president-elect to think of the conversation as a, quote, J. Edgar Hoover move, end quote. And on January 10th, 2017, the media reported that Comey had briefed the president-elect on the Steele reporting, and BuzzFeed News published information compiled by Steele online, stating that the information included, quote, specific, unverified, and potentially unverifiable allegations of contact between Trump aides and Russian operatives, end quote. The next day, the president-elect expressed concern to intelligence community leaders about the fact that the information had leaked and asked whether they could make public statements refuting the allegations in the Steele reports. Pardon me. I had to take some water, man. In the following weeks, 3 congressional committees opened investigations to examine Russia's interference in the election and where the Trump campaign had concluded with Russia, or had colluded, had colluded with Russia. On January 13th, 2017, the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, that's SSCI, announced that it would conduct a bipartisan inquiry into Russian interference in the election, including any, quote, links between Russia and individuals associated with political campaigns, end quote. On January 25th, 2017, the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, HPSCI, announced that it had been conducting an investigation into Russian election interference and possibly coordination with the political campaigns. By the way, we're on 240, page 240. And on February 2nd, 2017, the Senate Judiciary Committee announced that it too would investigate Russian efforts to intervene in the election. Now we are going to page 241. 241 subtext 3. Flynn makes false statements about his communications with Kislyak to incoming administration officials, the media, and the FBI. Now on January 12, 2017, a Washington Post columnist reported that Flynn and Kislyak communicated on the day the Obama administration announced the Russian sanctions. The column questioned whether Flynn had said something to, quote, undercut the U.S. sanctions, end quote, and whether Flynn's communications had violated the letter or spirit of the Logan Act. President-elect Trump called Priebus after the story was published and expressed anger about it. Priebus recalled that the president-elect said, quote, what the hell is this all about? End quote. Priebus called Flynn and told him that the president-elect was angry about the reporting on Flynn's conversations with Kislyak. Flynn recalled that he felt a lot of pressure because Priebus had spoken to the, quote, boss, unquote, and said Flynn needed to, quote, kill the story, unquote. Flynn directed McFarlane to call the Washington Post columnist and inform him that no discussion of sanctions had occurred. McFarlane recalled that Flynn said words to the effect of, quote, I want to kill the story, unquote. McFarlane made the call as Flynn had requested, although she knew she was providing false information, and the Washington Post updated the column to reflect that a, quote, Trump official, end quote, had denied that Flynn and Kislyak discussed sanctions. When Priebus and other incoming administration officials questioned Flynn internally about the Washington Post column, Flynn maintained that he had not discussed sanctions with Kislyak. Flynn repeated that claim to Vice President-elect Michael Pence and to incoming press secretary Sean Spicer. In subsequent media interviews in mid-January, Pence, Priebus, and page 242, and Spicer denied that Flynn and Kislyak had discussed sanctions, basing those denials on their conversations with Flynn. The public statements of incoming administration officials denying that Flynn and Kislyak had discussed sanctions alarmed senior DOJ officials who were aware that the statements were not true. Those officials were concerned that Flynn had lied to his colleagues, who in turn had unwittingly misled the American public, creating a compromise situation for Flynn because the Department of Justice assessed that the Russian government could prove Flynn lied. And Donald Trump knew that it was a lie because he knew that Flynn had talked to the ambassador. Okay. All of them upholding each other in line. He done brought out the worst in everybody. Huh? So it says, the FBI investigative team also believed that Flynn's calls with Kislyak and subsequent denials about discussing sanctions raised potential Logan Act issues and were relevant to the FBI's broader Russia investigation. As long as their administration had not been installed in office, he was still the president-elect, and President Obama and his administration were still the ones that were the legitimate government of the United States. And they didn't have no business interfering and trying to do nothing with nobody until they got installed in office. I think that's what the Logan Act is about. On January 20th, 2017, President Trump was inaugurated, and that's where I gleaned from saying the Logan Act. I think I heard them say something about it earlier, but I'm not sure. On January 20th, 2017, President Trump was inaugurated and Flynn was sworn in as National Security Advisor. On January 23rd, 2017, Spicer delivered his first press briefing and stated that he had spoken with Flynn the night before, who confirmed that the calls with Kislyak were about topics unrelated to sanctions. Spicer's statements added to the Department of Justice's concerns that Russia had leverage over Flynn based on his lies and could use that derogatory information to compromise him. On January 24th, did I tell you page 242? On January 24th, 2017, Flynn agreed to be interviewed by agents from the FBI. During the interview, which took place at the White House, Flynn falsely stated that he did not ask Kislyak to refrain from escalating the situation in response to the sanctions on Russia imposed by the Obama administration. Flynn also falsely stated that he did not remember a follow-up conversation in which Kislyak stated that Russia had chosen to moderate its response to those sanctions as a result of Flynn's request. Now, here's people that's part of the Justice Department lying to the Justice Department. Here, this man is over it. He's part of the executive branch, which the Justice Department answers to, and they lying to the Justice Department. Anyway, page 243, title 4. DOJ officials notified the White House of their concerns about Flynn. On January 26, 2017, Acting Attorney General Sally Yates contacted White House counsel Donald McGahn and informed him that she needed to discuss a sensitive matter with him in person. Later that day, Yates and Mary McCord, a senior national security official at the Department of Justice, met at the White House with McGahn and White House counsel's office attorney James Burnham. Yates said that the public statements made by the vice president denying that Flynn and Kislyak discussed sanctions were not true and put Flynn in a potentially compromised position because the Russians would know he had lied. Yates disclosed that Flynn had been interviewed by the FBI. Now, you don't really understand, obviously, how serious that is, what they're talking about. But you see, when Russia watches what go on, when you have people in the administration in positions of power who lie to their own Justice Department, certainly those people fear something that the Justice Department will do to them or say to them. And whatever a man fears, that's what you can use to make him do things that he would not ordinarily do. That's what they meant by Flynn could have been compromised. Because if he's afraid to let it come out that he had talked with Kislyak, then that's something they could use as leverage. Hey, man, now look, we know you lied to your own Justice Department there. Now, why don't you just go and do this and let's just go on. It ain't nothing but another lie. You don't mind lying, you know. You done showed us that. So don't tell me you don't like to lie. Do you understand? And I'll tell you something else. They know they can't trust you too. So if you think that you done won some friendship with anybody when they find out that you lied to your own government, they know you do that to them too. Do you understand? Okay. She declined to answer a specific question. Yates disclosed that Flynn had been interviewed by the FBI. She declined to answer a specific question about how Flynn had performed during that interview. But she indicated that Flynn's statements to the FBI were similar to the statements he had made to Pence and Spicer, denying that he had discussed sanctions. McGahn came away from the meeting with the impression that the FBI had not pinned Flynn down in lies, but he asked John Eisenberg, who served as legal advisor to the National Security Council, to examine potential legal issues raised by Flynn's FBI interview and his contacts with Kislyak. That afternoon, McGahn notified the president that Yates had come to the White House to discuss concerns about Flynn. McGahn described that what Yates had told him, and the president asked him to repeat it, so he did. McGahn recalled that when he described the FBI interview of Flynn, he said that Flynn did not disclose having discussed sanctions with Kislyak, but that there may have been a clear violation of 18, beg your pardon? But that there may not have been a clear violation of 18 USC South Section 100. The president asked about Section 1001, and McGahn explained the law to him and also explained the Logan Act. See, the president knew all about that stuff Flynn had did with Kislyak. The president, page 244. The president instructed McGahn to work with Priebus and Bannon to look into the matter further and directed that they not discuss it with any other officials. Priebus recalled that the president was angry with Flynn in light of what Yates had told the White House and said, quote, "Not again. This guy, this stuff," unquote. That evening, the president dined with several senior advisors and asked the group what they thought about FBI Director Comey. According to Director of National Intelligence, Dan Coates, who was at the dinner, no one openly advocated terminating Comey, but the consensus on him was not positive. Coates told the group that he thought Comey was a good director. Coates encouraged the president to meet Comey face to face and spend time with him before making a decision about whether to retain him. Subtitle 5. McGahn has a follow-up meeting about Flynn with Yates. President Trump has dinner with FBI Director Comey. The next day, January 27, 2017, McGahn and Eisenberg discussed the results of Eisenberg's initial legal research into Flynn's conduct, and specifically whether Flynn may have violated the Espionage Act, the Logan Act, or 18 U.S.C. South Section 1001. Based on his preliminary research, Eisenberg informed McGahn that there was a possibility that Flynn had violated 18 U.S.C. South Section 1001 and the Logan Act. Eisenberg noted that the United States had never successfully prosecuted an individual under the Logan Act and that Flynn could have possible defenses, and page 245, and told McGahn that he believed it was unlikely that a prosecutor would pursue a Logan Act charge under the circumstances. The same morning, McGahn asked Yates to return to the White House to discuss Flynn again. In that second meeting, McGahn expressed doubts that the Department of Justice would bring a Logan Act prosecution against Flynn, but stated that the White House did not want to take action that would interfere with an ongoing FBI investigation of Flynn. Yates responded that Department of Justice had notified the White House so that it could take action in response to the information provided. McGahn ended the meeting by asking Yates for access to the underlying information the Department of Justice possessed pertaining to Flynn's discussions with Kislyak. Also, on January 27th, the president called FBI Director Comey and invited him to dinner that evening. Priebus recalled that before the dinner, he told the president something like, quote, "Don't talk about Russia, whatever you do," end quote. And the president promised he would not talk about Russia at the dinner. McGahn had previously advised the president that he should not communicate directly with the Department of Justice to avoid the perception or reality of political interference in law enforcement. When Bannon learned about the president's planned dinner with Comey, he suggested that he or Priebus also attend, but the president stated that he wanted to dine with Comey alone. Comey said that when he arrived for the dinner that evening, he was surprised and concerned to see that no one else had been invited. Page 246. Comey provided an account of the dinner in a contemporaneous memo. In an interview with this office and congressional testimony. According to Comey's account of the dinner, the president repeatedly brought up Comey's future, asking whether he wanted to stay on as FBI director. Because the president had previously said he wanted Comey to stay on as FBI director, Comey interpreted the president's comments as an effort to create a patronage relationship by having Comey ask for his job. The president also brought up the Steele reporting that Comey had raised in the January 6, 2017 briefing, and stated that he was thinking about ordering the FBI to investigate the allegations to prove they were false. Comey responded that the president should think carefully about issuing such an order because it could create a narrative that the FBI was investigating him personally which was incorrect. Later in the dinner, the president brought up Flynn and said, quote, the guy has serious judgment issues, end quote. You say Flynn had serious judgment issues when Flynn was doing what he wanted him to do. Ain't that something? Okay. He knew exactly what Flynn was doing and had condoned it. Comey did not comment on Flynn, and the president did not acknowledge any FBI interest in or contact with Flynn. According to Comey's account, at one point during the dinner, the president stated, quote, I need loyalty. I expect loyalty. End quote. Comey did not respond, and the conversation moved on to other topics. But the president returned to the subject of Comey's job at the end of the dinner and repeated, quote, I need loyalty, end quote. Now you see why he invited Comey there by himself. For if Comey was as big a crook as he was, then Comey would have said, well, you got my loyalty, Mr. President. Right? And when nobody heard that but him and the president, right? Okay. He kept coming back to, I need loyalty. What about the United States? Does the United States need loyalty from its chief executive officer? Does the United States need loyalty? I'd have probably asked him that. He'd probably kick me out the office right then. You know, I'd have told him, I'd say, if I have my way, you wouldn't be president. Matter of fact, I'd have probably took a tape recorder in there. Anyway, Comey responded, quote, after he kept on talking about he need loyalty, Comey responded, quote, you will always get honesty from me, end quote. Huh? The page 246. The president said, quote, that's what I want, honest loyalty, end quote. Comey said, you will get that from me, quote, end quote. See, Comey understands the language. Honest loyalty to the United States of America. Do you understand? All right. After Comey's account of the dinner became public, the president and his advisors disputed that he had asked for Comey's loyalty. Then why did he invite him to have dinner by himself with him? The only reason he would do that is because he wanted to have a private conversation with him. And if he wanted a private conversation with him, it must have been something that he knew that others, if they heard, would know that it was out of order. Okay. Remember circumstantial evidence? Okay. The president also indicated that he had not invited Comey to dinner, telling a reporter that he thought Comey had, quote, asked for the dinner, end quote, because, quote, he wanted to stay on, end quote. But substantial evidence corroborates Comey's account of the dinner invitation and the request for loyalty. He must have forgot that Bannon and Priebus had told him that they thought they needed to be in there. See, he forgot about that. A liar. But substantial evidence corroborates Comey's account of the dinner, invitation, and the request for loyalty. The president's daily diary confirms that the president, quote, extended a dinner invitation, end quote, to Comey on January 27th. With respect to the substance of the dinner conversation, Comey documented the president's request for loyalty in a memorandum he began drafting the night of the dinner. Senior FBI officials recalled that Comey told them about the loyalty request shortly after the dinner occurred. And Comey described the request while, page 248, while under oath in congressional proceedings and in a subsequent interview with investigators subject to penalties for lying under 18 USC South Section 1001. Comey's memory of the details of the dinner, including that the president requested loyalty, has remained consistent throughout. Subtitle 6, Flynn's resignation. On February 2nd, 2017, Eisenberg reviewed the underlying information related to Flynn's calls with Kislyak. Eisenberg recalled that he prepared a memorandum about criminal statutes that could apply to Flynn's conduct, but he did not believe the White House had enough information to make a definitive recommendation to the president. If you all give us about 5 or 10 minutes, we'll be through reading this for tonight. I'm about 3 pages to go. Eisenberg and McGahn discussed that Eisenberg's review of the underlying information confirmed his preliminary conclusion that Flynn was unlikely to be prosecuted for violating the Logan Act because White House officials were uncertain what Flynn had told the FBI. However, they could not assess his exposure to prosecution for violating 18 USC South Section 1001. The week of February 6th, Flynn had a one-on-one conversation with the president in the Oval Office about the negative media coverage of his contacts with Kislyak. Flynn recalled that the president was upset and asked him for information on the conversations. Flynn listed the specific dates on which he remembered speaking with Kislyak, but the president corrected one of the dates he listed. The president asked Flynn what he and Kislyak discussed, and Flynn responded that he might have talked about sanctions. Page 249. On February 9th, 2017, the Washington Post reported that Flynn discussed sanctions with Kislyak the month before the president took office. After the publication of that story, Vice President Pence learned of the Department of Justice's notification to the White House about the content of Flynn's calls. He and other advisors then sought access to and reviewed the underlying information about Flynn's contacts with Kislyak. FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe, who provided the White House officials access to the information and was present when they reviewed it, recalled the officials asking him whether Flynn's conduct violated the Logan Act. McCabe responded that he did not know, but the FBI was investigating the matter because it was a possibility. Based on the evidence of Flynn's contacts with Kislyak, McGahn and Priebus concluded that Flynn could not have forgotten the details of the discussions of sanctions and had instead been lying about what he discussed with Kislyak. Well, in the first place, that's just a sham too, because all of the time, all of them was stonewalling and lying. Do you understand? Flynn had also told White House officials that the FBI had told him that the FBI was closing out its investigation of him, but Eisenberg did not believe him. After reviewing the materials and speaking with Flynn, McGahn and Priebus concluded that Flynn should be terminated and recommended that course of action to the president. That weekend, Flynn accompanied the president to Mar-a-Lago. Flynn recalled that on February 12, 2017, on the return flight to D.C. on Air Force One, the president asked him whether he had lied to the vice president. Flynn responded that he may have forgotten details of his calls, but he did not think he lied. The president responded, quote, "Okay, that's fine. I got it." Let's not that now. What is that? One liar to another? Okay, I got it. I got it. I got it. Yeah, I got it. It's no way you would think that this was kind of conversations that was being had with the president of the United States. Page 250. On February 13th, 2017, Priebus told Flynn he had to resign. Flynn said he wanted to say goodbye to the president. So Priebus brought him to the Oval Office. Priebus recalled that the president hugged Flynn, shook his hand, and said, quote, "We'll give you a good recommendation. You're a good guy. We'll take care of you." End quote. Talking points on the resignation prepared by the White House counsel's office and distributed to the White House communications team stated that McGahn had advised the president that Flynn was unlikely to be prosecuted, and the president had determined that the issue with Flynn was one of trust. Spicer told the press the next day that Flynn was forced to resign, quote, "not based on a legal issue, but based on a trust issue, where a level of trust between the president and General Flynn had eroded to the point where the president felt he had to make a change," end quote. But in private, he had told him he's a good guy and we're going to take care of you. Huh? But go out there and lie and say, "I couldn't trust you, and that's why I let you go." Right? Keep lying. Lie all the way out the door. Is that right? Oh boy, this is unbelievable. Subtitle 7. The president discusses Flynn with the FBI Director Comey. On February 14th, 2017, the day after Flynn's resignation, the president had lunch at the White House with New Jersey Governor Chris Christie. According to Christie, at one point during the lunch, the president said, quote, "Now that we fired Flynn, the Russia thing is over," end quote. Christie laughed and responded, quote, "No way," end quote. He said, quote, "This Russia thing is far from over," end quote. And quote, "We'll be here on Valentine's Day 2018 talking about this," end quote. The president said, quote, "What? What do you mean?" Pardon, he didn't say two words. The president said, quote, "What do you mean?" end quote. "Flynn met with the Russians. That was the problem. I fired Flynn. It's over," end quote. Christie recalled responding that based on his experience, both as a prosecutor and as someone who had been investigated, firing Flynn would not end the investigation. Christie said there was no way to make an investigation shorter, but a lot of ways to make it longer. The president asked Christie what he meant, and Christie told the president not to talk about the investigation, even if he was, page 251, frustrated at times. Christie also, he told him, don't talk about it even if you're frustrated at times. Christie also told the president that he would never be able to get rid of Flynn. Quote, like gum on the bottom of your shoe. End quote. One crook talking to another. Been there, did that. Huh? Like Bridget, that Bridget lady. He tried to get rid of her, and she keep coming back. All right. Then towards the end of the lunch, the president brought up Comey and asked if Christie was still friendly with him. Christie said he was. The president told Christie to call Comey and tell him that the president, quote, tell him that the president, quote, really likes him. Can you believe this? Tell him he's part of the team. Sound like Al Capone in the movie one time. What is it? It's 9 men on the field, and it's what it's about. And all of them say, team. I mean, this is rich, man. Tell him he's part of the team, end quote. At the end of the lunch, the president repeated this request. He repeated his request that Christie reach out to Comey. Christie had no intention of complying with the president's request that he contact Comey. Yeah, put me in this mess. He was really thinking, he knew what, but he better not get involved in that. He thought the president's request was quote unquote nonsensical. And Christie did not want to put Comey in the position of having to receive such a phone call. Christie thought it would have been uncomfortable to pass on that message. At 4 p.m. that afternoon, the president met with Comey, Sessions, and other officials for a Homeland Security briefing. At the end of the briefing, the president dismissed the other attendees and stated that he wanted to speak to Comey alone. Sessions and senior advisor to the president, Jared Kushner, remained in the Oval Office as other participants left. But the president, page 252, excused them, repeating that he wanted to speak only with Comey. At some point after others had left the Oval Office, Priebus opened the door, but the president sent him away. According to Comey's account of the meeting, once they were alone, the president began the conversation by saying, quote, I want to talk about Mike Flynn, end quote. The president stated that Flynn had not done anything wrong in speaking with the Russians, but had to be terminated because he had misled the vice president. The conversation turned to the topic of leaks of classified information, but the president returned to Flynn saying, quote, he is a good guy and has been through a lot, end quote. The president stated, quote, I hope you can see your way clear to letting this go, to letting Flynn go. He is a good guy. I hope you can let this go, end quote. Comey agreed that Flynn, quote, is a good guy, end quote, but did not commit to ending the investigation of Flynn. As you see, Flynn got charged. Comey testified under oath that he took the president's statement, quote, as a direction, end quote. because of the president's position and the circumstances of the one-on-one meeting. Here's a question. How many of y'all think Donald Trump should not be impeached? Come on, this is your chance to, ain't nobody gonna know who you are. How many of y'all think that he shouldn't be impeached? You're always on the news there talking about 45% say that he shouldn't be impeached. I know one of you ought to be able to chime in. You know why you don't do it? Because you know I'm the Lord, and you know you're going to be held accountable for all of this wrong that you've been supporting. Everybody who takes part in an unjust action, even if it's just a wink and a nod, you have a share in its consequence. Am I clear? All right. And it ain't because you white. It ain't because you black. It ain't because you yellow or brown. It's because you are a liar. And all liars shall have their part in the lake that burneth with fire and brimstone. You said, like I told you, telling one lie don't make you a liar. But when you practice it and are consistently telling lies, you know how you become a pianist? You consistently practice and get proficient at playing the piano. You become an artist by consistently drawing, and you become proficient at it. You saw all them liars sitting down. People ask them, just tell me yes or no. Never know yes or no. Just let me see. A yes or no is all it required. But they are proficient at lying. And I don't know about you, but I'm sick of it. You paying these people salary, and they taking the money. It ain't like, and we give them permission to do it, but they taking our money at the gas pump. Let me read my gas bill here to you. $1,100 and some. Let me see here. What's these taxes here? SST tax. Whatever that is. Then hazardous waste tax. SST, state sales tax. You got all kind of stuff on here. Man, they got all this money taken in every day, getting paid six-figure salaries. I didn't hear you. And we ask them a simple question. Did you do this or did you do that? Can't get a straight answer. Is that the actions of somebody who think they work for you? Or is that the actions of somebody who feels that they don't have to answer to you? When people don't answer you, it's because they feel they don't have to. Okay. Tell you what, that's 20 pages. So I'm going to stop it right there. I thank the station for giving us that little extra time. I thank you for bearing with me for this little extra time. Now I'm going to let y'all go. Unless somebody had a question they wanted to ask me, I'll give you an opportunity to do that. But I remember now, I told you, there's stuff going on in this country they ain't telling you about. There's stuff going on all over the world with nature, with the forces of nature. Allah kept that ice, that water froze up there for the day when I would come here and be talking to you and you would be threatening me and all that kind of stuff. He said, don't worry, son of man, I got your back. And if Allah ain't got my back, where's all of them people that used to threaten me? How come ain't nobody doing that no more? Since I ain't nobody but a delusional nigga, according to you, told you was going to learn to be scared of me. All right. And you ain't learned it like you going to learn it. When you realize how much authority I really have, it's going to be too late for you. All right. May Allah bless us all and keep us safe. What is it, son? No, no, sir. I know what I heard. Anyway, I know the difference in the voice coming from out in the audience and the voice coming through my, a sound coming through my phone. All right. May Allah bless all of you who hungry and thirsty for his righteousness. I guess you notice you being filled. Okay. May Allah's salam alaikum.